Hello and welcome to On the Table. I'm Rachel and I am here with Corie and Rebecca, and today on the table we are going to be talking about entertainment for Christians.
Right.
So before we dive in, I do have one question for you about your preferences for entertainment. So, what is your guilty viewing pleasure, would you say?
That's a good one.
It is
Kind of a dangerous question.
YouTube videos. YouTube videos, cats, kids, funny videos.
Yeah.
The other day, I found my brand new obsession. I typed into the search. I typed into the search bar ancient hairstyles because I just wanted to see like maybe someone would have put up hair, like a tutorial video on like ancient hairstyles. Guys, there's a lady on YouTube who is simultaneously an archaeologist, yes, and a hairdresser, and she has merged her two passions, and she recreates on YouTube. She recreates in video format using time appropriate tools.
Okay.
Roman and Greek hairstyles,
That's
and even
insane.
some Renaissance hairstyles based off of pictures and things like that, like carvings
So
and coins.
if you
That's
quit your
amazing.
current job now, we should look for your YouTube profile several days later.
Yes, I am all about it right now. All
so
about
good.
it.
That's amazing.
It's like the dark hole of YouTube that I,
It's
real.
You can
keep
find
going
so much
and
stuff
going and
online,
going
and that you can't even, because the videos just keep playing now. Like if you just watch one,
Yes.
they keep.
You can turn that off though, right?
Yeah, you
So
can. You
still-
can
I
turn
should
it off all the
probably
way.
turn it off because
Yeah.
I've accidentally spent a lot of time watching, and by the end of it, I'm like, what was I originally
Oh yeah.
When I
watching?
study for podcasts and I
Yeah.
use any kind of YouTube videos, I'm like, what am I learning about? I just don't know anymore.
Also,
Refer to
like,
your notes.
if you take your favorite Christian authors and you type their name into YouTube,
Yes.
often like debates will pop up.
Yes.
Or
Yep.
It's really
love
cool,
it.
actually.
Yep.
Love it.
It's quite neat.
Anyway,
Okay, well,
how about you?
mine
Yeah.
is home decorating shows.
Oh my goodness,
Pretty
so
much
fun.
any of them. Hometown, Fixer Upper, take your picks. There was just a new one on Netflix recently called Stay Here, and it has like a little bit of like marketing stuff in it too, and then they go to all these different like Airbnb places and like really make them like a lot better.
Ooh.
Oh, it's so good. I just love the reveal of it all. Like,
That sounds
I
really
want to be
fun.
that person one day. So just look at your new home. That's why I watch these, but I love them. Me and my twin sister watch them religiously, like
That's
all
so
the
funny.
time. We
That's
love it.
awesome.
So yeah,
How about you?
that's one for me.
Okay, I don't really. I spend time on YouTube, like everyone else, but that's not really where. That's not really where my guilty pleasures come in. I really like. I'm a big fan of movies. Like I will spend
Same.
way too much time watching movies or just having them on
Movies
in the
and TV.
background while I do
Yep.
other things. So probably what I tend to go to the most is probably something by Jane Austen or Emily Bronte, or
Kinda
a
like the
story
older-
about people
Yes.
reading their stories.
Yes.
Like there's
It's like
Austen Land, like
classic
there's
guilty
just,
pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it just
like
makes me so happy
Old
all
school
the time.
romantic comedies.
Yeah.
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 They're mostly clean,
Right.
so
True,
you
and
can
they
do-
are.
Yeah.
like so I don't have to worry. I can just leave it on in the background, and
So good. Yeah, that's a good one.
I really enjoy those. So that's probably mine.
Nice.
Good one.
Okay, so for entertainment for Christians, there's a lot we can discuss, and this
topic,
is
yeah.
actually, I
Yeah.
think this is going to get kind of broad, but that's okay. So I have a couple of questions for you, and I know you have a couple of questions for the
Yes,
topic. So
yeah.
we'll just go through all of them. What do you think should be the standard for entertainment for Christians?
That's a really difficult question.
Should there
I'm going
be?
to say the Bible, which is a typical answer, but I think it's hard to find
is.
passages sometimes in regards to entertainment because there's no
What chapter and
verses.
verse says
Yeah.
it can only be PG-13 or
You
less?
shall not watch slasher fix or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
That can be difficult. But I think any standard for anything in a Christian's life always is going to come from the Bible.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think it can be really difficult to find verses sometimes that back that up. But I do think they're in there. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we have to dig for them. But there's one that I'll share with you guys that I found today while I was studying for this about, it's in Galatians 5, and it's when it's talking about the fruits of the Spirit. But starting at verse 22, it talks about, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Before that, it is talking about a little bit about the opposite of what the fruits of the Spirit is.
Right.
But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things that you would do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident, and this is sort of where it gets into like a nice list for us. Sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warn you, as I warned those before you, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So I think it's nice that, and then right after that verse, it goes into the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's kind of like a nice little synopsis of like Christian life. Here you go.
Yeah.
Don't do these things. Do these things, and
Yeah.
it really sums it up nicely.
Yeah.
Now it's hard to translate that, and I think this is where the issue comes in,
That
and
is
why
where the
we're
issue
even
comes
talking
in.
about this.
Yeah.
It's so hard to translate that into what is that today, like what exactly falls into those categories today.
Yeah, because there are a lot of Christians who would say, well, you know, you can watch this television program because, you know, it's just a normal American family, but you can't watch this television program because it has a whole bunch of different cultural elements in it.
Yes.
And they would put more rigid rules on it, whereas I think it's all bad. I still watch some of it. But
Yeah.
I really do, like, it's from the culture. It is cultural.
Yeah.
It is all
Yeah.
fleshly. Like, unless we're claiming here that there's a television producer out there who is like, you know what, I'm going to make a television program and make it biblical. And
Yeah.
very few, if any, are out there
Yeah.
right now
Yeah.
for entertainment purposes. I mean, you know, in 2 Thessalonians, there's a verse that the apostle is describing people who are dying, so people who are not saved, people who are dying.
Right.
And one of the descriptive ways that he describes them is they enjoyed unrighteousness. They enjoy unrighteousness. And that really gets me. So when we're watching television, when we're watching movies, are we beginning to enjoy something that is unrighteous and
Right.
unrighteous behavior? Are we enjoying people engaging in unrighteous behavior? And unrighteous behavior is defined by Galatians 5:19
Yes.
to 22 and other passages like that. And that's very sobering. It's a sobering thought
is.
where, you know, you have to catch yourself and go, okay, wait a second, what am I rooting for here?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you get involved, I think especially in television programs that are really long series,
Yeah.
you get invested in the first season and it's really great. But then by the fourth season and the fifth, things are getting weird. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? Things are starting to get
absolutely.
weird.
Yep.
Yep.
But you're invested in the character, so you start rooting for them.
Yeah.
But they're doing all of these horrible things. And you catch yourself beginning to enjoy unrighteousness. That
Yeah.
is very bad. That is when entertainment has crossed over that barrier in your heart and caused
Yeah.
you to want bad things and begin desiring bad things. And that can happen really easily, which is why I think
does.
entertainment is dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting because I noticed that, I can't remember what series I was watching recently, but there were, and it was not one of the, like, I can't claim it was a good wholesome series. There were characters, and it's one of those shows, probably like a survival end times world scenario type thing where people
Right.
are killing each other back and forth. And by
Right.
the end, there were some characters where you're like, oh, I just really dislike this character so much. It would just be easier if someone would kill them off. And I remember catching myself in that thought going, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that's not okay to
Yeah.
think that. Like, and
Yeah.
and that's when I turned it off, and I did not go back to that show for quite some time because I was like, I need to think about where my heart is at, where I'm like, it's totally
Yeah.
okay in this fictional world for
Yeah.
me to be like, let's just get rid of them, which may not seem weird, like, because culturally that's just kind
And
of
you know
where
it's fake.
It's totally
Yes.
fake. These are not real people.
Yeah.
But that was still in my heart, and I still really wanted to deal with it. And it's just that
Yeah.
that kind of, wow, you know, that's not the kind of person that I want to be, where I'm like, let's just kill these people off because they annoy me.
Yeah.
And this is the thing where I think, you know, I think you have to be really careful as a Christian, because you can't just say to another Christian, well, you're not a good Christian because you're watching insert. I don't think you
Yes.
can say that. But
No.
as Christians, we are commanded to be self-reflected. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, which means that there's something to be concerned about when you're working out your faith. So it's a process. You're not a Christian and then you're good forever. You're a Christian and then you have to begin inviting God into every stage of your life and every portion of your life, just because you want him to be your Lord. You want to have a relationship with him. And so there is that area of self-reflection where when it comes to entertainment, when it's people who, they're just regular people, they're not Christians, they're not following God. Even if they are Christians, they're still fallible human beings. So they're creating something for your enjoyment, but you still have to have your guard up in a sense. You still have to be paying attention to your heart. The Proverbs say, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. And Jesus says in the Gospels, it's not what goes into your body that makes you unclean, it's what comes out of your mouth, because that's coming from your heart.
Right.
And that's another thing, a really easy test, is your language. I don't know about you guys, but if I've been watching too much television, or if I've been around the wrong kind of crowd for a really long time and not keeping my heart and being careful, it becomes very easy for me to slip into swearing, or to slip into complaining or grumbling, things that I normally wouldn't have issues with,
that you got checked.
Fill your life with all of these negative things and things that stray away from the morality of the Bible, eventually that comes out. So you do have to be careful what goes into your life, what goes into your mind and into your heart, and you just have to be careful that you're upkeeping that, I think.
Yeah, and that actually goes into a point that I thought was interesting. There was a really cool article that I read about this from Focus on the Family, which does a lot with families and kind of family entertainment and that kind of stuff as well. And Alan Weed, a president of a Christian music organization, he said this: Christian kids listen to 4 hours of music a day, most of it mainstream, not Christian. This means a serious kid who goes to 2 services a week, has a personal quiet time, and invests time with a mentor is still spending more time getting messages from the secular world than he or she does with spiritual things. And to me, I was like, that really stood out to me, because I was like, in my own life, yes, like obviously I study the Bible and pray and do devotion, that kind of thing, but what am I devoting more time to? Now, not to say that like legalistically you have to spend more time, doing Christian things versus doing mainstream things, but it really made me take a step back and be like, this is just interesting, because it is true. Like what you put into your body is what you're going to get out, and what you put in mentally as well is also what you're going to be getting out. So it's kind of interesting that way as well.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so next question. Should we avoid depicting crime or evil in Christian movies or TV shows to avoid glorifying it?
Okay, so this one for me is interesting, because obviously in the Bible, and this is the same argument you hear all the time too, in the Bible there's obviously a lot of violence that goes on, and you can just
there's some stuff that we don't really teach in Sunday school. You can't really go into the detail.
There's things that you don't teach kids until they're a certain age, or they don't read a certain passage, or you don't go into the full details until they're a certain age and can kind of understand it. I think the difference with something like that, and depicting something in the Bible versus in entertainment or media or books or whatever it is it's not being glorified. You're not violent for the sake of violence. Even with like a World War II movie or anything of that context, often it's not necessarily something that's being glorified. It's just the story being told as it is. So I think there is a separation there when it comes to violence, gore, all those kinds of things in books, movies, whatever it is, as to what's just glorifying it and being there for the sake of it, and what is
There's
really
definitely
being
difference.
told.
You can depict something without glorifying it. You can depict it for what it is, a debase act.
Exactly.
Right? You can.
Exactly.
It's possible. Normally doesn't happen in mainstream, I think.
No.
Sometimes it does. I think you're right in like the context of war movies or when something is supposed to be terrible, but a lot of times it is glorified.
But for sure.
In Christian movies, I think you have to still depict reality. You can't have like a really fluffy Care Bear movie that's supposed to be.
Well, even the Care Bears had villains.
They did. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Okay. What about, okay, this is a little bit different, but what about Christian film companies owned by larger corporations that have stakes in different industries that are not so family friendly, like the porn industry.
Yeah.
And especially because right now, and I'm seeing a lot of these articles pop up on my Twitter feed and even in my email, for problems within the church with the porn industry. It is actually a legitimate problem within the church, which is horrible.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, film companies are owned by bigger companies. Like there's a monetary system going on. So is it okay? How should we boycott? Should we not watch? What do you think?
I think like the whole boycotting thing, I mean, if you really want to put your energy into boycotting it, okay, but like I feel like there's better things to put your energy into.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then just don't watch it.
Yeah.
But I think this is something that Christians often don't think about. We are a market. Christians are a market.
We are.
So businesses will make branches of companies to market specifically to us, because in the West, in Canada and America, we are a big market.
Yeah, we are.
Money,
Yeah.
money, money. We will spend money to watch a movie or to buy a T-shirt or whatever. So we are marketed to just like any
Anybody
other
else.
segment of the population is marketed to. So this is just what you're going to get. And this is one of the reasons why we have to be careful. And I think especially as parents, you have to be careful for your children and what and who you trust. Whom you entrust your child's mind to.
Yeah.
Like you can't just think your kid is safe watching a movie from a specific Christian company because they say they're Christian or they make Christian movies.
Yeah.
Just because they're marketed for the Christian doesn't necessarily make them Christian. So we can't be lazy with our own minds or with our kids' minds, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Okay. And do you have a standard of rules that you personally adhere to when it comes to entertainment?
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
No, definitely. I think that it can be difficult because the Bible's not as specific as on some issues as maybe we'd always like it to be.
Yeah.
And this is one of those areas for me. Like I would love it to be like, you know, for you guys 2,000 years down the road, here is the rules of what you really should be watching or what you shouldn't be watching. But no, I think that you know, with your conscience and that kind of thing, what you should be watching and what you shouldn't be watching, and hopefully you'll still very much, you know, feel convicted about it as well.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. I mean, like there are things that personally offend me that I think just because of who I am and experiences that I've had in the past and experiences that my family has gone through that really personally offend me that don't offend other people quite so much. And so I don't expect it to offend them as much as it does to me. So there are certain films and movies and TV shows that I will just stay away from just because of that. But then also with everything that we talked about before, that whole concept of enjoying unrighteousness has really stuck with me. And so
a really good point.
I always try to be really careful. I do stick away from shows that attempt to normalize what the Bible describes as sinful behavior, which is a lot of shows. And
It's a lot.
And I've just done that because I care. For me, it's more I care about the people in my life who are non-Christians and who think that's normal. And so I want to be really conscious that I'm treating them in love and in truth. So I don't want to do God the disrespect of being like, oh yeah, they're fine. This show is fine. Do you know what I mean? This is kind of a roundabout, emotional, like woman way of being like,
I get it.
I see the program and I might really enjoy a program or a movie, but I start to think about, oh, I know people who actually live like that or who do that. And that breaks my heart. And so I'm like, okay, let's just shut this whole thing down. Let's just stop watching this right now. Because I don't want to enjoy unrighteousness because I love people who are in that lifestyle, who are doing those different things. And it's kind of like, there's part of me that kind of feels like, how dare you to pick that like it's normal? Because God, it's not normal. And people that I love are dying because of that. You know what I mean? So
I get that.
My personal scale, it's not perfectly consistent if I'm being totally honest. I'm a work in progress and my family is a work in progress, and I'm trying to allow our conscience to
like I don't follow any rules where, you know, I won't watch anything of this rating system, but my husband and I always make a point of anything with a a higher rating than like PG-13, it's like, okay, why is it rated that way? And we check it. And
Right.
depending on what the content of the film is, because ratings don't really tell you everything.
It's true.
Like there could be something rated, you know, because of violence, and then it could also be, you know, sex and nudity. It could, like, you don't really know what it is, and it's like, well, what kind of violence? What kind, like, what are we, if is it a war movie? Then you expect violence.
Are we glorifying it, or are you just depicting
are you depicting it?
Yeah.
Is it based on a true story? Like, there are some factors involved, so so I always go through and check the ratings and see why something is rated the way that it is. One thing that I have a really hard time with personally, because I love stand-up comedy, and all of them, for the most part,
Have language.
have tons of language and get really inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
It's like the bottom feeder of
I
comedy,
know.
and most of them go for it. Some of them don't.
Some of them don't. And there was even a series, and Netflix had it on for a little while, that I really enjoyed, and it was actually Christian comedians, and I think it was called Thou Shalt Laugh. And it was just a whole bunch of, a whole bunch of Christian comedians, and I was so excited. I think they did 4 of them. I was so excited because finally it was just like, it's clean.
Yeah.
You know these are going to be jokes,
Yeah.
and you don't have to go,
Yeah.
like,
It's so
because you
true.
don't know what you're in for with others. So if ever I find like a comedian where there's no swearing and they're not getting inappropriate, I'm always so excited because I just love that. Like that's one of my my
It's fun to
favorite.
laugh.
I really enjoy comedians, but most of them, for the most part, it's like I can't watch it, and I'm so sad.
It's true. It's very true.
So
Okay, so I have a question which sort of kind of goes into what we've already been talking about, but this is more of like from my personal experience, I am asking this question.
Okay.
So I've heard many people say things like, well, blank doesn't affect me the same way that it does other people. So you can fill that blank in with violence, gore, swearing, whatever you want to fill it in with. Is this a valid statement? Is there some things where, like what I just said too, like your conscience is going to convict you? Is that a valid thing? Are we just justifying what we watch by saying, hey, swearing doesn't really affect me very much. You know, I hear other people swear, but it doesn't make me want to swear. Things like that. Or is this just, is that like an actual way to go about this? Or is there a definitive standard in the Word of God? Like in Philippians, when it talks about whatever is good, whatever is, you know, noble, think about such things. Do we just sort of as Christians, all of us sweep that under the carpet and just ignore it? Or is it actually a valid thing?
it sounds almost like someone. When I hear that, I first think you're digging for an excuse to be able to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it.
That's how I feel.
Kind of
if
what
and I have said that in the past, where I'm like, no, swearing doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me want to swear. I don't swear in my day-to-day life. Listening to it doesn't affect me.
Some things will affect people more than others, though.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
that is valid.
yeah.
Like there are certain things that if a movie is rated for, like there's one specific thing, I won't watch it.
Yeah.
If it's in it and I wasn't expecting it, I turn it off, never to turn it on again. That's just
everyone
just
has
me.
different personal limits for
and
sure.
and I have friends
Triggers,
who watch
if
it,
we want to use
and
a cultural
it doesn't
word.
bother. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like once you're getting into the like I can watch whatever I want because it doesn't affect me. Does it?
Yeah.
Does it really not?
That's sort of the question.
Doesn't mean it's good for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's still poison. It's still unrighteousness.
It's not
Yeah.
killing
Right?
you.
Yeah.
So
But it's not good for you. Yeah.
it's one of those things where you can't condemn a person for doing it, but you
Yeah.
can say, well, yeah, but I mean, like, is it good for you? Like,
Yeah.
I adore a chocolate cake, but if I ate chocolate cake and that was all that I ate, I wouldn't be healthy for very long.
Yeah.
And maybe if
Yeah.
I had a killer metabolism, I'd look fine for a while, but eventually it would catch up to me, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just nature.
really
That's
great
just the way things
comparison.
happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it might not affect some people for a while, but I think if you're not careful, anything can affect you. Any unrighteousness can affect you if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Because it's that whole thing. I mean, you can use the illustration of a garden with that whole keeping your heart with all diligence.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a garden at home, you know if you leave it, you can put all of the products on it that you want. But weeds are still going to come up in your garden, and it's
still
going to
need to
look
prune it.
ugly. It's gonna start to
Yep.
choke out unless
Yeah.
you pull the weeds out. You have to be careful, and you have to keep your heart. So,
Right.
I mean, it's true to a certain extent. But if something's
probably not the way we
good
always
for
use it,
you,
yeah.
it's still not. You can't change the nature of something to
Yeah.
magically be good for you.
I feel like
Right.
it's mostly true between children and adults more than anything, because children probably shouldn't watch things that have more adult content, even just like boring
Well, they
adult
shouldn't
TV.
have to handle it.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but what I mean is like for small kids,
Right.
that would be true, but it's not really
Yes.
true for anybody else. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. There's only so much chocolate cake you can eat before
Yeah.
before you get sick.
Well, and you have to wonder, because if you ever look at the lives of people who are really, really strong believers in Jesus Christ, who really live what they believe, a lot of them I find don't really go into the entertainment world and watch all of those horrible things and listen to all of that bad music. And it's not that they're condemning of those who do, it's just that they choose not to. And you have to wonder, well, why do their lives look so different? And it's because of their love for their Lord and his effect in their
Right.
life. But the Christians who maybe do want to watch all of those rated R movies, the horror, the gore, all of that,
Right.
sometimes those people eventually kind of fade out of relationship with the Lord, because it's like, what are you feeding your
Because it
heart
will
with?
have an effect on
It does
you.
have an
It
effect.
does.
Ultimately, it does.
Okay.
And I think
Weeds.
I'm really challenged by the concept that when you're extremely when you are so dedicated to God, and when you put Him at the center of your life, and He is your everything, miracles happen. You know, God moves, and you begin to see God. And entertainment, at the end of the day, is a distraction. Literally. That's what
the
it is.
purpose of it,
The
yeah.
point of entertainment is to distract you from your reality, to take you out of your world and put you into a different world, which is fine and it has a place. But today, we're all about it.
Yeah.
We go home from
Yeah.
work. A lot of people don't even just eat dinner. They eat dinner and watch TV, or
Yeah.
eat dinner and watch it. So it's a constant,
Yep.
constant barrage of entertainment. We're out of our
Yeah.
world. So
Constantly.
how, like, we can't really expect God to move the way He did, for example, in the first century church, so intensely
attention
through
as
the
much.
when we're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So there's that. I find that personally extremely challenging
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
own life when I think about things like that.
Yeah, because if you're bored, what do? You throw on Netflix or the
Yeah.
TV, or like I've been to like how many times I've been to someone's house and the TV's just on. Nobody's not
Yeah.
even watching it. It's
Yeah.
just it's on. Everyone's on their devices, and it's like everyone's just very consumed by
Well,
media, and we're
yeah.
not really paying attention to what's going on around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, it's striking to me how many times I'll be like watching a movie or watching TV, and I'm still playing a game on my phone, or like I'm still doing something. Like,
Yeah.
you're not only just
Got
like
something on your
consuming
laptop going.
media, like I
Yep.
need so much. My brain needs so much that I'm still doing something.
It's like I'm paying attention to
something
you, but I
else.
need
Like,
to be
it's-
distracted
it's
from my
not-
distraction
Yeah,
for a little
yeah.
while. It's bad.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and it can be really jarring at times, because not to say there's anything wrong with like watching a movie or TV or those kinds of things, but I think like what you said earlier too, you have to check yourself, and you need to be
Yes.
constantly doing that in your life anyway. It's a good habit to be in, but I think especially when it comes to entertainment as well.
Yeah.
So kind of on that side too, do you guys think it's possible to be too legalistic about this?
Yes.
And
Oh,
an
yeah, you can
example
be
of
legalistic about
this.
everything.
Okay, so this is an example that's like kind of
question.
interesting. If you take the name of the Lord in vain,
Okay.
I'm gonna say 95% of what I watch does that. Okay, like even like the home show reveal ones, they're constantly.
True.
That's the
OMG.
first thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the first thing that's out of their
Just
mouth.
like,
We know as Christians that in the commandments it says, don't take the name of the Lord in vain. So we know this is a sin. Actively know this is a sin. Is that something that you would turn off a TV show? And in comparison to that, something like where if it depicts, two people sleeping together, they're not, well, at all, it doesn't matter if they're married or not, two people sleeping together.
Most of them are not
Like, I know
married.
for me, I'm faster to turn off, any kind of nudity or sex, whereas taking the name of the Lord in vain, not probably going to turn off.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you, I hardly notice it anymore.
Yeah.
So something
Yeah.
like that, is it possible to get too legalistic, or is it like, no, that's in the Word of God, it's a sin, and we shouldn't be celebrating sin by watching this, don't watch it? It's like a loaded question there, but
Well, I think there is a difference too between like a movie that says Jesus Christ a zillion times. Like there's some movies where I get personally offended because it's supposed to be funny, and I'm just like, I'm done with this. It's not funny. I'm having the worst time.
It wasn't funny the first time. It's not funny now.
Yeah,
100 times later.
And so there is a difference between that, where they're purposely making that making Christ the butt of a joke over and over, and watching a show where someone says OMG when a big room reveal, because you're not taking personal responsibility for that sin. You're not. It's not your sin by watching someone else do it. It can desensitize you though, which you're right. Entertainment has a thing. Whereas there are differences in sin, because when you watch a sex scene, if it's extremely explicit, it's explicit because they want to draw you in. They want to tap into human lust, because humans will pay money to watch more because it feeds our lust. So there is a difference in sin where if you hear an OMG once, it probably won't have as damaging effect on your mind as watching an explicit sex scene will.
Yeah.
But it does still have it's still bad. Yeah. It's still not good for you because it can desensitize you. But I feel like there is a difference between it. And when has it ever worked to make legalistic rules for Christians?
Yeah, no, you're
has
totally.
Not
It's
worked.
never really. Yeah. There's never kind of a point where I'm like, yes, you should be legalistic on this issue. Like there's no point that I'm like, okay, this is great. But I think you did explain that well, that there are different things, and even the way that it's drawing you in and that kind of thing, I think that makes a really valid point. Yeah.
But I think just remembering that we do have to be removed from our culture. Like we're in the world, but we're not of it.
Yeah.
Kind of like that is kind of an important thing to remember. So
and I think
there's a level of discernment.
And I think how interesting it can be too, even as conversation points, when you aren't watching the same things as your friends or your culture. Like, good example, Game of Thrones. I'm going to go right off the top and say that, for me, it's not something I'm going to watch. And most of the people that I know or see, they're like, hey, have you caught up on the Game of Thrones issue? I'm like, oh, I don't actually watch it. And often the question is, why not? It's such a good show. And I'm like, well, I'm a Christian and I really...
Yeah, there's so much stuff in it.
I tried.
I think I turned on the first episode. I did not make it very far.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that the opening credits were done rolling. I was like,
I will find a better story.
Yeah.
I know apparently it has a great storyline, but there's so much nudity and sex and sin. It's just like, you know what? I'll find a better story.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I think it can be often something that God does give us, where it is something that can be used as a witnessing tool or whatever. When you do say, no, I don't watch this because I believe that things, and you have to word that in a way, not that like, I don't watch it because I'm so amazing.
I'm so much better than you.
Exactly.
No.
And that's important.
No, but I am noticing that, especially now with a lot of the shows that are coming out, because I have Netflix, and I'm noticing a lot of the TV shows and stuff that they're bringing out now. It's like I can't even turn them on because I've checked. I know what's in it. It doesn't make the cut for what I would, for my standards, for what I want to be, and it's disappointing.
Is it any wonder with TV and film the way it is currently, with our entertainment, with things like Game of Thrones, that in the church today, young people in the church, swearing and sexual sin is it's rampant.
Oh, yeah.
No one cares. Yeah. No one thinks it's a big deal anymore. God still thinks it's a big deal.
Yeah.
This is why, it has to be, your Christianity has to be a relationship with God, and you have to be filled with the Holy Spirit, because according to John chapter 14, the Holy Spirit lives with you and reminds you of all the teachings of Christ. So, it's possible to turn that tap down to a trickle. So you can't really hear the Holy Spirit because you're too busy listening to stinking Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the
and
TV is
the
so
dragons.
loud.
Yeah.
Guys, turn the right tap on and the right tap off. But everyone's on a journey, and everyone's going through that process. You just gotta
And discernment is kind of something that you develop.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
it is.
You don't become a Christian and all of a sudden have a lot of discernment. You do have to learn.
Yeah. And you have to study it. You got to spend time doing that. Again, what you put into yourself is what you're going to get out of yourself. So, again, put more of God's word into yourself, and you're going to get it out.
Oh my goodness! If you feel guilty about something, stop
doing it.
Yes.
Stop doing it, because if you keep doing that
you
thing,
won't. You'll have a seared conscience.
You will. Yeah, you can stop guilt, and that's how you should stop guilt, just by stopping doing the thing that you feel guilty about.
Yeah. If you're ever having that, I feel so guilty moment,
just stop.
And it's Not
pray it
chocolate
through.
cake.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that
Even if
all
it is
guilt.
chocolate
Even if it's chocolate cake, you probably
Yeah,
shouldn't.
I'm not saying that all guilt comes from God, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
But stop what you're doing and check.
Yeah.
Read your Bible,
Check it out.
pray, work through that issue, and then move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You kind of have the self-control to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good discipline.
It is. Okay, so one more question that's sort of going to veer off a little bit into a bit of a topic, but we won't spend too long on it.
Sure.
So I read a really interesting article from Reverend Dale Kuipers. He's with the Protestant Reformed Churches, and this is his quote, which we're going to quickly discuss. Says, "We ought to be aware of the entertainment craze, or be aware that the entertainment craze is having its effect in the worship services of many churches. Church members are viewed as consumers, and you have to give the consumer what he wants. What he wants is to be entertained. God must be presented as a consumer-friendly God. Do not talk about his holiness, his wrath, his justice. Talk exclusively about his love. Present God as a nice old man who's always there to help you and make you happy. Much of today's worship is oriented to the idea of entertainment. The people must have a jolly good time, or they will leave the church and go into one has a bigger band, a funnier preacher, a bigger stage, and more brilliant lighting effects." Edward Fairley, writing in Christianity Today, comments that contemporary worship creates a tone that is casual, comfortable, chatty, busy, humorous, pleasant, and at times even cute. He goes on to say that if the seraphim would adopt this Sunday morning mood, they would be addressing God not as holy, 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 but as nice, nice, nice. So I thought it was a really interesting quote to kind of come across. And what do you think? Like, is the entertainment of today and is what we're consuming and the amount that we're consuming affecting churches and affecting the way that we view worship of God? You know, just a small question.
Yeah, so I think yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It definitely has an effect. How can it not?
Yeah.
Right?
Culture affects
It
everything.
changes, our culture has changed, therefore the way Christianity is applied to the culture will change.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily think that this has to be a bad thing. I think that it is a bad thing in some contexts currently.
Right.
So with that whole like seeker-friendly movement, look, if you're not teaching the gospel, if you're not teaching the gospel as the actual gospel,
All of it in its
all of
entirety.
it, God with the aspects of him that makes our culture go, "Ooh,"
Yeah.
like there are those in there that are
Yes,
rough,
there
and you've
are.
got to wrestle with God because of our culture, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
You know, Jacob did it. We can do it too. You know, we won't walk away the same, just like him. I hope I don't get a limp though. Genesis. Anywho, small digression. No, you know, there are those who would take that and they would say we have to stick to like what Christianity looked like in the 1900s.
Yes.
Well, why is Christianity in the 1900s better than Christianity
why is that
in
our
2000?
standard?
Yeah, no.
Like, why do we have to go back to Latin? We don't.
Exactly. We don't. We don't.
Yeah.
No. And because I do think that Christianity, the beauty of Christianity is that God meets cultures where they are at.
Yeah.
So Korean Christianity will look a little bit different than Canadian Christianity, will look a little bit different than Russian Christianity, will look a little bit different than anywhere else in the world, and that is totally fine as long as Jesus is Jesus, the Jesus of the Gospels.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you start stripping the gospel of truth because, they're not going to like that, so let's not talk about that, let's not talk about that, that's not good.
Yeah.
But I mean, if my worship leader is wearing skinny jeans, big deal. I don't care. If he or she is actually worshiping God and loves the creator of the universe and Jesus Christ and is doctrinally sound, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if the music is one note, super repetitive. I don't care. Well, like I care.
Yeah,
But at the end of the
care a
day,
little
if
bit.
their heart is right and
Yeah.
their theology is good, I don't care. That's fine.
Yeah.
Christianity is moldable to different cultures. That's why it worked in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start stripping it of its truth, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. I'm not sure, because he brings up not wanting to go to a church that gives you what you want. And there is something to be said about going to a church where you're comfortable. If you don't, like, you know, as a family, we've gone to churches before growing up where, you know, my mom really liked it and my dad really didn't. And it was like, well, you know, do we stay where maybe you're not going to get as much out of it, or do we find a church where everyone is going to be able to get something from it? Everyone's going to learn, because not every teacher teaches the same way. There are some teachers that some people find harder to learn from.
Right.
There is something valid about that. But when it comes to just stripping, like you had said, stripping the Bible of things because we don't like it and makes us uncomfortable, that's absolutely a problem. But I don't think there's any problem with finding a church that you're comfortable with, where you can relate to the people who go, where you can develop relationships, because a lot of what's important about going to church is the fellowship.
Yes.
If you go somewhere and you can't fellowship,
I would say, and the teaching as well, and the doctrine that they hold. I would say that's like first and foremost, but I definitely think fellowship's still really important.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't think, I don't think it's, obviously it's not good to start ripping things out of the Bible willy-nilly.
Yes,
No,
you can't do
not
that. And I
good.
think that it becomes a problem too when we decide that this was a really great church service, or this was a really good worship time, when we're like, I was entertained. And that's how we measure when it's
Our
effective.
system of measurement.
Okay, and for me,
Huge.
like, I had to catch myself the other day, and it was actually really interesting because this happened at the same time that our pastor was kind of also talking about it, which was just worked out really well. We had a worship leader who was just like, we just don't jive, okay, people? Like, to put it nicely.
Okay.
So there'll be points where, maybe they're off tune, or there'll be someone singing beside me, and I'm like, I can't hear anything because you're singing so loud. Like, I got this. And for me, it distracts me with my worship.
Yeah.
And in his sermon, he was talking about how worship it's an attitude you come to before you get through church. And for me, I was like, how interesting, because it shouldn't be about, this was an effective worship service because I was so entertained and I got so much out of it. And is everyone going to have a good time tonight? And everyone's like, yeah, cheering, and it's great, it's wonderful. That's not what church is about. And I think that it just made me have like a bit of an attitude check as well, being like, whoa, I've got to separate this. I've got to separate like the entertainment that is my life and the entertainment and the constant stimulation constantly all the time that we have with our devices or whatever it is, and just realize and go back to what is the service of church for.
Yeah, why am I here?
What am I doing
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
And if I'm here to
So
be entertained, I am here for the wrong reason. And I think it was just a really good step back when I was kind of researching through some of this, reading that quote, I was like, whoa, because I had never thought of it that way before. So it just kind of made me catch myself a little bit with that. So,
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's true.
big podcast session.
I know. So much to talk about
cover.
with this.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's it for me.
Okay. So no follow-up? Anything to wrap up?
No.
No, I think,
I think you made some really good points that I think,
Yeah.
like, even for me personally, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's
yeah,
really good.
takeaways for us. is that
That second
Put that in
Thessalonians
my
one's about
pocket.
enjoying unrighteousness. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is like a good standard that now I can be like, okay, this is good. And to constantly be checking yourself. Like, it's such a good reminder that we always seem to forget, but every Christian kind of knows it.
Yeah.
Check yourself. Check yourself all the time.
Yeah, because you get kind of accustomed to whatever's normal in your life, and things get normal really quickly. Because if you get comfortable with something, it becomes normal, it becomes habit. It's really fast. So just to keep that check regularly, it's helpful. So. Well, thank you for joining us today on The Table, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining our discussion today on The Table. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to click subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest from Bible Discovery TV. On The Table is also on Facebook. Check out our page for our newest episodes and some behind-the-scenes content.